Okay, so we made some good progress with the Gamepad API wrapper. This plugin basically hopes to wrap all game inputs from keyboard or Gamepad or the mouse. And this is what it looks like when you first load it with no data, so nothing has been added, no mappings, no Gamepad configurations. There's basically three main areas. And hopefully once everything's set up, the only menu you'd have to be in is players. That just makes sure that all the players are ready to go, especially if you're using Gamepad. So let's take a look at each of these menus. In players, you see there's 3 players listed. There's no mappings set up, and there's no options for any of these players. So I've used some data. This is the data that I've sent to the plugin. I sent over max players of 3 and a list of actions, and this is all you need to do to send over and initialize this wrapper plugin. And so I set it to 3, which is why you saw 3 players, and then this is the list of actions that I'm going to be trying to map, like move forward, move back, strafe left, etc. Each of these you can provide a description that's more user-friendly and a category. So if you want to group these actions into a specific category, you can do that. So let's go back, and here we see the 3 players, but of course no actions, so there's going to be some work that needs to be done here. Moving into the next category, mappings. This is where you'd create a mapping. So you would create a mapping from the actions that you've sent into the different keyboard, mouse, and Gamepad inputs. I want to use some gamepads, so we're going to come back to this section in a little bit, but if you weren't using gamepads, you could start right away with the mouse and keyboard inputs. So I'm going to move over to calibrate. As you can see, that my plugin is not aware of any gamepads that I've ever used. Next to me here I have 3 gamepads. I have 2 Xbox controllers and a PlayStation 3 wireless controller. And so I'm going to turn on one of the Xbox controllers. As you can see, it detects it. If it doesn't detect it after you turn it on, you would just hit keys. Different browsers handle detection differently, and sessions and things like that. So the instructions for there are always there. I can unplug it. It detects that it's been removed, and if I ever come back, it's going to remember that I've used an Xbox 360 controller. It's going to hold on to that. So that makes it very nice. So I'm going to turn it back on, and then I'm going to click on it to make sure that it's configured. So I'm going to hit buttons on my controller, and as you can see, nothing's happening. It's because I've never mapped these controls. In the future, we plan on storing these configurations, and the plugin will actually go and get them. So hopefully that everything's configured for you. The reason this is important is there's tons of gamepads, operating system, browser combinations that change how the inputs are read into the browser. And so this is a nice way to be able to fix them if for some reason they don't exist or we don't have record of them online. So you can click on these individually and then map them, or you can do them all at once, which is what we're going to do here. It's a little quicker. So I'm going to click this button, and it's going to ask me to press each of these buttons. So it's going to take me to the D-pad. It turns red, and then I click the button to turn it green. If you miss one up, don't worry, you can always go back to the list and click it individually. So this will take just a second. Go through these. Right bumper. This is the stick click underneath. And done the best job of making this actually look like an Xbox 360 controller. These are stored again and can be delivered from the web. These are just configurations of button positions. So now it's done. And now if I press buttons, they're mapped correctly, which is great. Okay, so now this is stored. We don't ever have to come back in here. It's going to remember that for Xbox 360 controllers, this is the mapping that we want to use. So I also have a PlayStation controller here. This is wireless, so I'm going to turn this one on. And again, it pops up. It recognizes that it's a PlayStation 3 controller. Again, I press buttons, and it hasn't been mapped yet. So we'll map the PlayStation 3 controller real quick. Now, if there was another controller type, and it was different and set up in buttons, then you could create your own configuration. Hopefully we get to the point where we've provided most of the major ones for you. And so that'll be a goal of ours, is to make sure we provide those for you, so it's really easy to just kind of plug and play. Here's my axis. Okay, so it's done, and now when I press buttons, they all show up. So that's great. So now I'm done here. These are always mapped. I never have to come back to this menu. They're going to be stored. Okay, so that is the calibration. So now let's make a mapping. So let's say we have a game where 2 players play on controllers. Okay, so I click to create a new mapping. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it John because this is how I want to play the game. And here you can see I have my categories and my actions. So in the category of games, I have these actions. And as you can see, these are the types of inputs that I want to use. By default, keyboard and mouse are on, gamepad is off. So I want to use my Xbox 360 controller. And then let's map a few actions. So here, this is what's mapped to this action. Move forward is mapped to nothing right now, so we need a new input combination. So I want move forward on my Xbox 360 controller to be up. And so I can press it on my gamepad. If my gamepad was off or I didn't have one, I could click here and go through the buttons, and I could have clicked it in this menu, which is kind of handy. So right stick up is going to be move forward for me. But also, let's say for some reason I don't want to use my gamepad and I just want to do all keyboard and gamepad mappings at once. I would add another one, and then I would just touch the up button on my keyboard and it automatically detects it. So I can press right stick up or arrow up. So these are different combinations. It'll say yes to either of these that I'm moving forward. Same thing with back, and put a new combination. And I'm going to do back on my stick, and I'm going to press down on my keyboard. If you wanted to do a mouse, these you would click and find them individually here. Okay, so I should go through all of these, and hopefully when you play a game, the game developer has mapped all these for you and you can just make modifications. So I'm done with this one. Let's click back, and we need another mapping for my friend. So let's say Ben's playing, and he likes to use a PlayStation controller. He could also use an Xbox 360 controller, but let's go PlayStation for him. And I got my PlayStation controller, which is still on. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now I'm holding my PlayStation controller, and I'm going to do right stick up. Or, same deal, I'm going to do W for him. That way we don't have a conflict if we both want to use the keyboard. And then back for this one. And that's going to be S. And so again, you would go through and do the mappings for him. I'm going to have a way of copying these so it's a little bit quicker in the future. So now we have 2 mappings that map the actions that were provided in to the basically whatever inputs you want to use. Neither of us are really using a mouse, so I can turn that off. And that indicates here that we're not using a mouse. It's not necessary, but it kind of keeps the UI a little cleaner so you know which people are using what. Alright, so now we have our mappings. Now we can actually hook those up to our players. So we have 3 possible players. Let's say I want to be player 1. I'm going to use John, which is an Xbox 360 controller. And let's select which one. There could be multiple Xboxes. As you can see, there's 4 possible slots. You can see here's the PlayStation and Xbox 360. The other 2 are empty. So I'm going to use 360. And Ben, he's going to be player 2. And we wired him up with PlayStation. So there's 1 PlayStation, the rest are disabled because we can't use an Xbox with the PlayStation configuration. And let's see. Let's do another setup. When someone else wants to use my Xbox 360 configuration, player 3, we shouldn't use 1. In fact, this will be disabled in the future, but I need another gamepad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my second Xbox gamepad. And here you see it lights up. So the game slot 3 has an Xbox 360, same with 1. So I assign each of these to a different player. But these are the same. But let's say player 3 has an inverted y-axis. So now that we have a gamepad active, more options pop up. So I can invert their axis and close, and that's it. So now you would use the plugin, and all you would say is player one moving forward? And that's the simplification, the abstraction of this API, is to just make it super easy to say which player and what action and get that value. And that is it. It's super handy, very dynamic, and again, it detects a lot of the configurations. As you see, I just unplugged the controller for player 3. It turned red. I need to go set that back up. I need to turn his back on, set it up, and you can see everyone's green and ready to play. So that's it. We're almost done, and I'll be making a demo page, hooking it up to an actual game so you can see how this works, and then we'll be providing some services, some web services to store a lot of this stuff, so that if you delete your configurations, you can get them back, and to be able to add a lot of new gamepads dynamically. So thanks. Feel free to give me some feedback, and we'll hope to finish this soon. We'll get this out there. Thanks a lot. Bye.